Let's start with the recording. All right, cool. So I hope you brought your mug. Oh, you cannot see my mug. Yeah, there you go. To this coffee break. So episode 71. Wow, it's been that means that we had 71 bi-weekly episodes of the coffee break. So Augusto is it's at a conference at the moment. So we are going to be taking over together with Peter. And before we kind of like move into talking to you guys about the stuff that you've been kind of like playing around with APS and so on, well, I want to just welcome all of you to this new episode. And at the same time, also, I'm gonna hand over the control to. Actually, I want to say something. Mr. Peter Brass has been promoted to Senior Principal Developer Advocate. So if I can ask you for a round of applause for Peter, he's such a rock star. So congrats, Peter, on that. and, and yeah, so let me stop my sharing, and then Peter, you can take over.
All right, I'll share my screen. And before I do that, yeah, thank you so much. You know, there was an internal email going, within the company where I really explained like how much I truly enjoyed this kind of work, right? I was talking to my colleagues about how I always wanted to work with graphics. I wanted to develop. I wanted to be a software developer. And I also really wanted to help people, work with people, teach people. And I wasn't sure if, back then, I wasn't sure if such kind of work job even existed. And I think this is really it, right? So I'm really grateful to be part of the team of the great folks, and to be able to talk with you guys, with our customers, because that really brings me joy. So thank you so much. All right. So quick thing for you guys, and Alex, I think something you might be very interested in. We have a new feature coming to the viewer. And we would just like to give you a quick teaser, and then Juan will share some more information, also a link to maybe a quick survey where maybe you can express some of your thoughts on this new cool little thing. Well, let me share my screen. Am I sharing? I'm sharing. All right. We have the new feature coming to the viewer. We call it Filter API. It's basically, we've been working on different ways of helping you manage the amount of data that you're loading into the viewer, right? We have some blog posts where we talk about how you can, use something like the memory limited extension, or where you can specify just a subset of the IDs of the elements that you want to load into the viewer. Now, as a next step in that direction, we're introducing this Filter API, which is basically this idea of giving you a way of specifying special types of filters based on either properties or spatial properties, or extents of bounding boxes within the scene, giving you a way to specify these filters to define what is the subset of the design that you want to load into the viewer. Let me show you how that works. First of all, I'm gonna generate a token for me. I just have this single page set up here just for demonstration purposes. And when I go live, we just have a standard Revit model here, right? Standard one. This is one of the official samples available on the Revit website. And what I do here is, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to output a couple of potentially interesting pieces of data or information about this particular model. So when the model actually finishes loading, we can just take a look at some of the attributes that are available in our model. All right, so this is the complete list of attributes that are being used on at least some of the elements in this particular Revit design. We can see information like view name, material, maybe structural, and you'll also notice this thing called property hash. Some of you may be familiar with it already. Those of you working with ACC model properties, model properties module on the Autodesk Construction Cloud. This is going to be really important because this kind of property hash can be used now with the new filtering API. Let me see what I mean by that. So let's say we wanted to, I don't know, filter by only load objects into a viewer that have a certain property on them that will contain, let's say, a material that will contain the word timber in it. Now, for now, what you can do is you can find out the hash of your property. So what you could do is you could go through the list of all the properties that are available on your design. You could look for something like material, or maybe you want to filter by another property, maybe called level. It's up to you. What you can do is find the hash of that particular property. Now, the reason we're using property hashes instead of property names for now is that property hashes actually include some additional information about that specific type of attribute. So not just the name of that attribute, but also, for example, the category under which it appears, right? Because you can imagine if we're looking for something like a property called material, that property may actually appear multiple times in different contexts. So one time we could be talking about structural material, right? Another time we could be talking about, I don't know, like an appearance material that might have slightly different meaning. So that's why for now we're using the property hashes to actually uniquely specify the kind of attribute that we're interested in. And I already have a small example here. I'll show you. We can say, all right, I want to filter by a specific property, or I want to create a specific query for properties that only objects that match that specific filter will be loaded by the viewer, right? So we can use, we're using a syntax that's actually the same kind of query language as in the ACC model properties API. So if you're not familiar, you can simply go to the ACC documentation and look at the model properties query language. The same functionality available here right now we're supporting a subset of this query language, but eventually the idea is that it will support the entire query language that you see here. And what I can do is, for example, I can say, I want to filter all the objects that contain the word timber inside that one specific property. Let's say this hash represents a material property in my Revit design that is under the structural category or context. So this is how I uniquely define the material, the property that I want to filter by. And I can use either usual equal relationship, or I can use this SQL like expression. So I can say I'm looking for all objects that have this particular property that contains the word timber in them. And then you can also expand, you can build more complex queries. You can have, when you add additional JavaScript object into the array, it's basically a logical OR relationship, right? So you can add another set of queries that objects that will fulfill at least one of these will all be loaded into the viewer. So that's the logical OR operation. And then, for example, another example we have here is we are looking for objects that have this other material property, but in this case, we're not talking about structural, but maybe just appearance material, set exactly to glass, right? And maybe also as part of this one JavaScript object inside a filter, we can also define additional requirements within the single JavaScript object. And in that case, that's basically where we're specifying a logical AND operation. So all these must match in order for that object to be loaded into the viewer, right? So here we're basically saying we're interested in all design elements that either contain the word timber in their structural material, or they have the material property set exactly to glass, and maybe they have another property, in this case, height, larger than 2500. So we save that code and go back to the browser. You can see that now we're only loading the corresponding subset of our design elements into the viewer, right? So only elements that have the structural material, I think it was called. Let me see if we can find it here. Yep, structural material. You can see this particular element contains the word timber in it. So it was basically called by the first part of our query, and it was loaded in. And similarly for the windows, they have the material set to glass, and I believe we were looking for their height to be more than a certain number. So you can see that this is actually 2,620, right? So this also matches the other condition in our query. Now that's one option, right? Property queries. But as I mentioned earlier, we also support spatial queries. And what that means is that instead of looking for objects with specific properties in their metadata, we can actually look for objects based on their spatial extents. Here's one example. We can say we provide another keyword inside a filter object. Before we were saying property, now we're saying spatial. And we provide a couple of operations similar to $like or $GT. These are actually used for bounding box intersections or enclosures or ray hit tests, for example. So here we can say we're interested in only those objects whose bounding box is completely enclosed by this hard-coded bounding box inside the scene, right? So we're basically specifying the minimum XYZ, maximum XYZ. And then, as you can see here, we're specifying the axis-aligned bounding box. And as the last parameter, we're actually saying what exactly from the model elements we want to test for the enclosure, right? We can either test just their centroid, whether their centroid is included in the bounding box, or we can say we want to check whether their bounding box is fully enclosed in our AA box, or we can say, I don't know, maybe whether their sphere bounds are completely enclosed in another bounding primitive. That will have documentation ready for you where we explain all these different types of, again, spatial operations that you can, and primitives that you can use for your queries. So now let me try and save this one and go back to our website. So you can see here now we're basically loading just a chunk of our original design, only those elements whose bounding boxes are fully enclosed within the minimum and maximum XYZs that we've specified here. And a small variation on this one, we can say instead of encloses, there's another operation called $intersect. So as I mentioned earlier, again, you have the freedom, you'll have multiple operators available, right? So encloses basically means complete enclosure, and intersection obviously means if at least part of that object's bounding box intersects with the bounding box we specify here, consider it valid for loading. So in this case, we're actually loading in a bit more because, for example, the ground itself at least partially intersects the same kind of bounding box that we were using earlier. And yeah, that's it. So that's our new filtering API. A couple of notes. It's available for SVF2. It builds on top of the SVF2 structure. Again, as I mentioned, currently we're using property hashes that are used inside the ACC model properties API as well. And we're thinking in future to support providing standard property names, even though, again, as I mentioned, this may be a bit ambiguous, because if you want to look for a property called material, that property may actually appear multiple times in that same design in different contexts. So you may, in that case, if you simply say, I'm looking for material property, you may get some results that you're not expecting. So we are considering these, adding support for providing just simple property names. Also, as of now, we support load time filtering. So again, this is the filter property is currently passed into the standard load document node or load model method that you would typically use to load a model into the viewer. So the idea for now is that you can build these complex queries and store them somewhere as your, let's say, custom views. And then later you can let your users load that custom view and efficiently only bring in a subset of the model, depending on the query that your customers have built previously. And we're also considering adding support for runtime filtering. In other words, letting you specify this filter not only at the moment of loading a model into the viewer, but also while the model is already loaded, so that you can load and unload parts of that model with your custom filters and queries. And as I said, the feature will be available in mid-May, and Juan will share some additional information and survey that you can take a look at if you're interested in this kind of feature.
Thanks so much, Peter. Yeah, maybe I can quickly talk about like what we want to do. So as you've seen the demo, I hope everyone finds it exciting. We would like to gather your thoughts while the product team is making some final tweak to this feature. So if you find this helpful, or if you're interested in trying this out, please fill out this short survey I'm going to send in the Zoom chat. We ask a few questions about how you would use it, how you would use the property or spatial query, or additional improvements you would like our product team to support. Yeah, and if you're interested in sharing your thoughts once you tried it out, we will set up some follow-up interview with you. Yeah, so if you're interested, please chime in, and then we'll follow up afterwards. Okay, thank you so much, Peter and Jaime, for having me here.
Yeah, sure thing, huh?
Absolutely.
All right, cool. That was exciting. And then now I wanna open up the floor for questions or things that you guys want to talk about. If you want to discuss about what we just saw, definitely it's an option. So I'm gonna give the first chance to Gerard.
Hey guys, how are you doing? A quick question, hopefully. Submittals API, I believe that was released as a beta some time ago, but was later withdrawn. Could you tell me what's the current status, or are there any plans to reintroduce it?
Submittals API. I don't think I have much information in regards to that. Trying to think if there's any other update that we can find out about it. Like I honestly don't have any from my side. Does any of my other people on the team know anything about it? I don't think I have. Let me see. Because it's not even on the ACC stuff, right?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, Gerard, I think for this, we may need to refer you to bring in our colleagues. Like you mentioned John or Zong. Was it?
Sorry?
What was the name of our colleague that you mentioned with respect to the submittals API?
I didn't mention any name.
No,
Oh,
you didn't.
sorry. Okay. No, because yeah, I think this would be probably a question for Xiaodong or Zong.
Yeah, we can refer to that. Why don't we do this? Let me send you my email, and that way I can touch base with you, and then I will include the people from the team that has been working with those APIs on the ACC side. And then, well, everybody has my email now. So yeah, so send me an email, please. And you can also CC or just actually send it to here and then CC me. And then just ask there about submittals API status from the coffee break of May 3rd. And that way we're like quicker to identify what's the issue. And I can bring in some of the other AEC tech leads into it. Maybe Mikako might know, but she's in a conference right now. So, but we'll find out the status of it. But as of now, I don't have any from my side.
Okay, so really there is no workaround or any option to extract some little data then from a Bin 360 site at the moment.
Like I said, from my side, I don't know. So, but we might want to look into it with our teammates in China that have been interacting with Bin 360 and ACC quite a lot.
Okay.
So I don't want to say a no completely, but it's a matter of like checking in with them.
So did you mention Zhao Dong was one of the people?
Yeah, Xiaodong and Zong.
I actually have I booked a slot on the Ask the Doctor or whatever it's called.
Oh, yes.
You have an appointment tomorrow with him.
Oh, cool.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So I
Even
wasn't
better
sure,
then.
sure if I was contacting the right person or not, but I just thought it would be good to ask here as well.
No, you did the correct thing. It's just that we're not familiar with that specific module of it. So we might want to like reach out to one of them.
Okay, yeah, it was a bit of a guess as to who to request on there, but looks like I got lucky.
Yes. Okay, cool. Thank you. We have, let's say in the chat, we have Alex.
Yes, I saw a question. Very interesting question indeed. This is actually something, Alex, that we discussed with the viewer team as well. Talking about the idea of, okay, maybe not just spatial queries as in like things enclosed within a certain bounds, but also like these spatial kind of queries, like everything on a specific level, right? That could also be retrieved either from, or I mean, everything in certain family. I guess that would be a better example, like the level as well. But here, like talking about, okay, how can we filter all the objects of a specific family or category or whatever those Revit groups are called? I believe that could actually be done today as well. Let me share my screen for a quick second, one more time, because you know that the instance tree hierarchy that you typically see in the model browser is actually embedded in the properties in the metadata as well. Because if, here again, like we have our little helper code snippet that basically exports all the attributes available on the elements in this design. And you can see that some of these are just these special ones with double underscores, like child or parent. Right, and here you could, so basically if I look for this parent property on individual objects, it actually has its own property hash as well. So I believe I should theoretically be able to identify the ID of the parent that I'm interested in. It could be some node in the tree, right? And then I could basically filter by this property hash containing that specific value, meaning I could filter all objects having, being children that are children of a specific node in the tree. So for these simple queries, like give me all the children of a specific group in the tree, I think the property hashes could be used as well. If you had some other more complex queries, I guess you could say, well, give me all the descendants of a specific node in the tree, right? That would be trickier to express with these kind of queries, I think. But yeah, like this kind of, simple workflow, filtering by the instance tree should be possible as well.
Okay, and I just did a quick look around the submittals API. It seems it is in the works. It's not available yet. So, but it seems like it is kind of like on a reviewing state. So probably it's coming soon. When I say soon, I'm not gonna give a date, but it is on the works. So yeah, like we can find out a little bit more about what's the expectation for a release and so on, or maybe like some private beta for it to be able to like bring in some customers to test out and so on.
Yeah, if a beta or some kind of early access was possible, that would be great. Just we have an immediate customer requirement.
Yeah,
the large quantity of submittals from the site from the BIM 360.
Okay, yeah. Let me find out with the tech lead, which in this case is Mikako, about it. Okay.
Thank you. I will send an
Yeah.
email to Lyle, just as you mentioned, just for reference.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Before I give a chance to Ricky, I do see 2 more questions on the chat. So Scott Thompson, is this a case of the API not being available? Yeah, that basically that I just said. It's still on the works. And then from Luis, I'm not familiar with the Revit to SBF2 translation. What happens with a Revit element with some extensible storage data? Is it translated somehow, or do I need to use some design automation to get that data? Better?
So I was wondering, I'm not super familiar with this Revit terminology, but does extensible storage means like attaching custom properties to design elements, or is this something like even different?
Maybe Luis, you can elaborate. Is your microphone working?
Hello.
Hi, Luis.
Yes.
Hello. How can I explain? It's like yeah, you can add some. It's not a share parameter, but it's kind of a share parameter, but for developers, so the user can interact. Something like that. I don't know how to explain better.
So that I think the easiest would be to try. Like, for example, you don't even need to develop an application. If you simply go to viewer.autodesk.com, right? That's one of the many applications built on top of our platform. You can just try and basically upload your Revit design there and just inspect, right? Inspect the properties of the individual objects and see if your data is there. I know that for other file formats, like whenever people embed their custom data to the individual elements, these typically come through, right? So this is used a lot, like for example, when you want to connect the individual design elements to maybe some custom ERP system of yours, right? So sometimes you may be storing like a part number or like some kind of ID that is very specific to your architecture, to your system that you're building up. So people typically embed these as like custom properties into their design element properties. But for these ones specifically, this extensible storage, that unfortunately I don't know. But again, it should be very easy to try, even if with something like the viewer.autodesk.com.
Yeah, and then just looking at the link that you sent, it might be in the viewer, but I guess the secure approach will be probably with design automation. But I would say it doesn't hurt to check. I would say first check with the viewer. If it's not in there, definitely you can do like a small process with design automation in order to do the extraction of that data and then continue working with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think also what I usually tell people when they ask about these like very specific types of data, whether it's being extracted automatically or not, what I usually say is that, the model derivative service is typically trying to find like the sweet spot where it extracts all the information that might be, useful to present inside the viewer, right? But sometimes it may be ignoring some kinds of information that if it was extracting all the data as well, the resulting files generated by the model derivative service would be just crazy huge, right? So again, so the service is trying to find a good balance of like what kind of data to actually extract and make available for the viewer. And if this extensible storage happens to be the piece of data that the model derivative service is not extracting automatically, then you still have the option, as Jaime said, and that's why also I keep telling customers, if you're looking for some data that the model derivative service does not extract from your Revit designs or other types of design formats, in case of Revit, you can always use design automation to really just take a peek inside the design file in a small custom Revit plugin. And at that point, you can extract any kind of information you want using Revit APIs.
So I'm going to give Ricky a chance to ask his question because we're going a little bit over time. So, and after that, I'm going to wrap up. Ricky?
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask, given I'm say a Revit cloud model GUID, what's the best way to get the corresponding item ID and data management? We did see two ways to do it. One way was to open Revit and then use the 2022 APIs there, but we figured that was a little too slow for our use case. And then there's also, you can query the items in each project to try to find the corresponding model GUID. But we also thought that was too slow, especially if you don't know which project the model belongs to.
Okay, I think I missed the question.
Yeah, the question is that given those two approaches, we're wondering if there was another approach we were missing, or if we would have to use those approaches.
So you try the extraction with model derivative and then model properties.
Yes,
I think.
essentially.
Maybe at some point like data exchange, but I'm trying to think. And what's the issue in general? Like it's just like what's like too slow to get back the data?
Yes, essentially.
What kind of models are you trying to extract data from?
We're not trying to extract data. We're trying to figure out, based on the model, the cloud model GUID, the corresponding item data management.
I'm not sure I understand. Does anyone else on the team kind of get what the question is?
Yeah. So given the Revit model GUID, we're trying to find the corresponding item ID in the data management system.
Like the location of the file itself?
Yeah, we are looking for the ID, so that would make sense.
Not sure.
I'm also not sure I understand the question exactly. Let me try and rephrase how I understand it, but I don't think it's the right way. But so you're looking for a specific Revit element with a specific GUID in one of your Revit designs that you're managing somewhere, let's say in BIM 360 or ACC. And you're trying to find the corresponding Revit design inside your ACC or BIM 360 project that contains that specific element with the GUID?
Not necessarily. I mean, the actual file itself has a model GUID associated with it in the cloud system. And we're trying, since we have that GUID, trying to find the corresponding item ID in data management.
So Revit design files have their own GUID, and those are like generated by Revit itself. Those are stored inside the Revit design.
I believe they're stored on the cloud model infrastructure. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think that's how it works.
Yeah. I might want to ask someone like Joao about this. So I'm going to ask you to send us the same thing. Send us a query to the aps.help@autodesk.com. You can CC me on it, and then I will pass it over to someone on the Revit side of it. Maybe like Joao or someone like Song can give us a little bit more insight. But still, like I'm not 100% sure that I understand what the question is. But yeah, we can figure it out.
All right.
Okay. Do you have the emails, or do you want me to type them again?
Yeah, I have the emails.
Okay. All right. So let me wrap up this. Where is my... Oh, where did my slides go? Okay. All right. So I want to say thank you to Peter and also Juan for the showcase of the filter functionality into the viewer. So next coffee break, May 17th. So 2 weeks from now. Don't forget to bring your coffee mug. And with that, I want to say thank you for joining us. And then please, to the people that I said to send us the email, do so. And don't forget to CC me, and that way I can like catch them earlier, and I'll bring you the people that can help us out with those questions. Okay. All right. With that, I want to say thank you, and we'll catch you up next time.
Yeah. Thank you guys. You take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.